Once again, it's G'day from Noppers, and welcome to my Hell Let Loose video titled Rolling Along in Hell Let Loose, a review of roles and gameplay, where I briefly dive into each role in this really cool tactical simulation from Black Matter and Team 17. I enjoyed putting this video together, so I hope it's of use to the gaming community, particularly the swath of new players I've seen recently who are jumping on board what is an excellent early access game. If you pay full price for this game, you will get your money's worth. My video today spends about 1 to 2 minutes on each role and provides useful information on what they do. Hopefully there's a bit of humour in there as well for your enjoyment. Each role mentioned has a basic loadout including weapons, bandages, and then a mixture of equipment. I won't discuss weapon specifics, I'm focused on the unique aspects of the various roles. I will also not be discussing what to do when you level up a role. You can explore that one for yourself. Some quick and dirty useful game tips. Turn your team marker view distance up and you will mostly avoid team killing. Turn your in-game microphone volume down to about 60 or 70%, but perhaps lower. Test it out in your squad, which is the C key by default. The command channel voice chat is the X key. Proximity voice chat is the V key. New players should use the in-game information and online resources to learn how to play each role in depth, otherwise I'd be here all day providing guidance. For now, time to get into it, if there's a damn spot on the server. You know what they say, if at first you don't succeed. Our first role in the list is Commander, and you should only play this role once you have experience with the rest of the roles. Armed with submachine gun, pistol, hand grenades, bandages or first aid kit, stopwatch, binoculars, and a map full of options, you can cause complete chaos on your own team if you don't know what you're doing, or be a meaningful contributor if you have some leadership and reconnaissance skills. In your Commander toolbox, the stopwatch is the tool used to create garrisons that allow everyone on your team to spawn in. Garrisons can only be set up at a maximum of 2 map columns into the enemy territory. Much of what the Commander does is conducted on the map itself. You can see on the right there are a bunch of commands that can be purchased with your team's limited resources. The first group is to do with capture points, so we have Reinforce, Encouraged and Final Stand. The last one in that group is Dismantle Garrison, useful as there's a hard cap on the garrison count for your team. The second group involves aircraft, so there's Supply Drop, Recon Plane, Strafing Run and Bombing Run. Finally, there is armour down at the bottom that can be deployed in the first row of your controlled area. The next set of functions on the map are notification and identification markers. As Commander, you can use these tools to mark areas on the map such as enemy garrisons, lines of advance, tanks, infantry clusters, and so on. This stuff is vital for your team, particularly your squad officers, to understand the bigger battle picture and help coordinate their activities accordingly. They rely on you, the Commander, to get it right. One of the main other roles of the Commander is to scout flanks and identify threat axes. Nothing wrong with conducting recon while directing the team, dropping supplies on yourself, and setting up garrisons or clearing enemy garrisons. Finding the exact right spot can be tricky. The Goldilocks position may not exist, but try to keep it out of sight of the enemy and somewhere that they may not immediately stumble across it. Remember to be prepared to defend it too. Grenades come in handy if you're on the defense. Overall, you're responsible for watching the flow of battle and advising your team accordingly. Here we have a cap underway by our team at Jourdain Canal, but the enemy are on Carentan. Looking at the colour of the ribbon and the friendlies at Jourdain, it looks like we will cap Jourdain well before Carentan falls, so no need to send anyone back to defend. May as well set up another garrison in backup for Jourdain though. Make sure you find that perfect spot. And it's victory. Pass around the tea and medals, boys. Nothing but the finest when you're Commander. Our next moving target is the officer. He's armed with a submachine gun, pistol, explosive and smoke grenades, bandages, stopwatch and binoculars. The officer has a fair bit to do and is arguably one of the more complex and challenging roles in the game. There is also a bit of real life rolled into the gameplay for the officer. Every voice channel will be running hot in intense combat segments, information needs to be passed on quickly and succinctly, and the cats that make up your squad need to be herded if possible. Oh, and you still have to shoot at things, and Private Jones is still complaining of blisters because you keep making him run everywhere. There are a couple of key parts to your role. You need to drop garrisons for the commander and your team to spawn in on, and you should ask where the commander wants them unless you're an expert player. You're going to need supplies to do this, so try to convince one of your squad to spawn in as a support role as they drop supplies for you to use. Otherwise it's beg for a logistics drop of supplies from a plane, and everyone can see that lazy parachute sailing in, which tends to draw squads of enemy. Drop your outpost, which is your squad specific spawn point, somewhere useful but not next to any garrisons. The same rule of 2 grid columns applies here though. That way, if the garrison is under threat or falls, you can still spawn in on your outpost and deal with the naughty enemy who are clearing your spawn points out. You need to be on call to attack as directed or freelance, but most importantly you must respond to requests by your team and especially your commander to return and defend. It's great when you think you're an awesome player and leader and you run off doing your own thing because you know better and you're an attacker, but most people will still think you're an arse if you didn't bother helping on defence when the team desperately needed it, especially when you lose the defendant's objective so your attack was meaningless or ineffective. On this, a good attack includes choking or restricting enemy lines of supply and reinforcement, not just capping a point. So think about where the enemy might be assaulting your defensive objective from and try to cut off their entry paths. You're also a bit of extra firepower in your squad, particularly your smoke grenades, which are useful in assaults. But most importantly, you are the eyes in the heat of battle for the commander and the rest of your team. It's really important that you mark and flag enemy stuff like tanks. This intel provides everyone with information that will help them make smart choices, like not running at enemy tanks if they're marked. Mark things early and often. Charging at an enemy spawn point before you mark it will most likely end up in you being dead and forgetting exactly where the bloody thing actually was. A few key tips. Don't get fixated looking through your binoculars. I've shot so many enemy officers at close range who are in binocular mode. Don't run around with your stopwatch open looking for the perfect spot. Ain't gonna kill no enemy with a stopwatch unless you're Chuck Norris. And look after your squad, please. The Rifleman is a simple role to play when compared to most of the other roles, and is a really great place to start to get a feel for this game. You can be useful straight away and still learn as you go. You have 4 options in your menu: rifle, grenades, a one-off ammo box, and bandages. Your job as Rifleman is pretty straightforward. Shoot stuff and provide suppressive and supporting fire, chuck a couple of grenades when you're assaulting things, drop an ammo box when your squad is in a more static location so you and others can rearm, and heal yourself occasionally of course. It's a good chance to learn how to follow your squad leader and support your squad, and that's about all there is to this role. One of the nice things about the Rifleman is the ability to apply deliberate fire at an enemy. Unlike many of the other weapons from the other roles, the rifle has a reasonably good sight, and with a steady hand you can knock helmets off of enemy heads to your heart's content. Anti-tank guys especially love having Riflemen nearby. Ammo boxes equal more anti-tank rounds, equal dead tanks. Just don't forget to tell everyone you've dropped the box. If you love grenading things, then the Assault is for you. The Assault has these equipment options: a fast-firing weapon, explosive and smoke grenades, and bandages. It can be a tough role to play on the more open maps, or around open field and hedgerow areas, due to having a weapon that's more spray and pray than it is accurate. But around buildings and close combat areas, the Assault is excellent fun and deadly lethal. Who doesn't love a bit of fast explosive violence? Naturally, you probably want to make sure that when you're throwing bullets and grenades around, you understand where your mates are. Remember, they may be advancing on either side of you, and the standard action on grenade is to jump 200 feet in the air and scatter oneself over a wide area. Teammates may not actually enjoy that. Whilst the Rifleman, Support and some of the other roles can work a little bit more isolated from their squads, the Assault really needs to be in there with the officer and the centre axis of the squad. Your firepower is short range and you need to work with others to root out enemy strongpoints. Make sure you're a team player and work with your mates in this way. Want to be a rifleman with more bullets than the next guy? May I present the Automatic Rifleman? You're equipped with very little, a fast-firing weapon that has, arguably, better range and accuracy than the assault weapons, some grenades, and bandages. It's a pretty popular role, most likely due to the volume of fire you can put down range without having to mount the weapon. That's a machine gun thing. It shoots well enough over distance, but trigger manipulation is critical for accuracy. Spray and pray isn't that great. The sight isn't terrible, so you do still have some chance of killing enemy at range. There's really not much more to this role. Ideally, it should be focused on supporting the officer directly, and it would actually work well in assaults with the assault role beside it. In the hands of a skilled player, the medic can support an assault incredibly well, and is what we call a force multiplier. In the hands of some others, the medic is that bastard who is 20 metres away but for some strange reason won't come and revive you when you're lying on the ground dying and crying out to mama. Medics have the following kit: rifle, pistol, smoke grenade, morphine syringe and unlimited bandages. Realistically though, the medic's two best weapons are the syringe and the bandages. The syringe to revive someone and the bandage to heal them up while they cover you. The rifle and pistol are only really there for some self-defense whilst you move to your next patient, and the smoke grenades are there to provide concealment if required whilst working. Unfortunately, some folks seem to think that the medic is just another rifleman and forget their primary role. A quick slap to the head usually reminds them of their job, but quite often medics will stick with their squads and not bother to stop and help other squad fallen. Such is the combat life, I guess. Pro tip for medics: when you're within proximity chat of fallen allies, which is the V key chat, and providing that you're not worried about the enemy hearing you, make sure you let your fallen colleague know you're on your way to heal them. Perhaps some reassuring words, like, for example, "Where does it hurt, son?" or "Trust me, I'm almost a doctor," wouldn't go astray. But more importantly, communicate that you're reviving them and then you are going to heal them. It will save them releasing or using their personal bandage, and they can protect you as you work. It's also amazing how much better your team will fight knowing that someone has their back, and a little bandaging goes a long way. The support role isn't all that exciting. It's literally a rifleman minus the ammo box, but with a supply box instead. Kit includes a rifle, grenades, bandages, and a 100 resource pile of supplies that is a one-off item. Sounds a bit boring, doesn't it? And you're probably partially correct. The primary role of the support is to drop their sole supply box wherever the officer or the commander asks for it to be dropped, as it allows the commander or officer to build a garrison, which costs 50 resource supplies. It also allows engineers to build resource nodes such as fuel, manpower or munitions, as well as barricades and emplacements of various sorts, and anti-tank guns, all of which also cost resource supplies. Often you'll see your officer ask for someone to spawn in as the support role to drop some supplies, and then they can either keep playing it or respawn back to their original role. It's really useful if you oblige this request, as it will be based on the needs of the team in setting something up. Some folks don't like redeploying, which is done through the game menu, as it makes their kill-death ratio look bad. But honestly, if you're worried about that, then Hell Let Loose is probably not for you, and Battlefield, Call of Duty, PUBG, Warzone are where you should be. Personally, I spawn in with the support and play it through until I die. It's just as good as any other role in the right hands. When you have limitless brass and like throwing buckets of bullets at the enemy, then go no further than a machine gunner. You get not much of anything: a machine gun, a pistol to use when you forget to load your machine gun and enemy are near you, and bandages when you are lucky enough to only be wounded. Whilst this explanation might sound a bit odd, there is a slight flaw in the machine gun role. If you want to use it to lay down effective fire, you will need to mount it via the F key, and whilst a machine gun can be mounted on walls, fences, rocks and so on, it means a big chunk of your torso is sticking up. But I've got a machine gun, and it's better than a rifle, I hear you say. Well, that may be true, but it's also loud and has tracer and is like a flashlight in the dark for the enemy to know exactly where you are. And any rifleman worth his salt on the enemy team is going to try and knock your helmet off. Further, in many militaries around the world, the machine gun is known as a weapon of suppression and area effect. We tend to find two types of machine gun player in this game: those who can't take their finger off of the trigger once it's pressed, and those who understand short controlled bursts. Ironically, this matches real life. To be the most effective in this game, a machine gunner should choose a position that provides maximum visible area to shoot into, and shooting should be in 3 to 5 round bursts that aims to suppress various targets while your squad mates move forward to flank and destroy. When on the move, the machine gun can be fired from the hip. Again though, to be most effective you should fire in 3 to 5 round bursts. Here's a good example of what I'm referring to when firing from the hip. Holding the trigger for longer will only end up having your grouping of rounds blow out to a huge useless blob, and it will also expend ammo so fast that you'll have used up all of your ammo belts in the first 2 minutes of combat. Enjoy hunting things? The anti-tank may well be calling your name then. However, it comes with a caveat. You are going to probably die a bit. The anti-tank has a few kit items: the obligatory rifle and an anti-tank rocket launcher of course, some grenades and bandages, and a wrench. It gives you the ability to build an anti-tank gun near a supply cache or to repair friendly tanks. This role is one of the more controversial roles because a poorly skilled or poorly educated player who takes the anti-tank role can really have a negative impact in a firefight. Whilst it is refreshing to see that armour in this game are not the all-conquering slaughter machines we see in certain other games, all of them, enemy armour with infantry support can be hard to get rid of unless you have your own armour on hand. But armour and infantry can be outflanked or outmanoeuvred, particularly armour where the viewports for the gunner and driver are really restrictive. That's where the anti-tank comes in. Your job is to either set up an anti-tank gun and engage enemy armour at long range, or to flank enemy armour to shoot it with a rocket in the vulnerable rear. Stupidity is shooting anti-tank rocket after anti-tank rocket at the front of an enemy tank and wondering why it doesn't die. Not long before it realises where you shot from because of the rocket smoke trail, and subsequently slaps you in the face with a tank HE round and a few machine gun rounds for good measure. So learn this lesson early. Have patience, and wait for the enemy armour to present its rear or side profile, and then whack it good. You have a rifle and grenades, and you and a couple of squaddies can work together to move around behind a tank and get rid of it. You'll be the most popular person on your team if you do so, but remember, you have limited ammo, so shoot smart. Watch out for enemy tank commanders too. They have a nasty habit of seeing you approach and jumping out of the tank to shoot you with their submachine gun. The engineer is a very important role for the team and is more designed for players who intend on sticking close to their officer. The equipment list for an engineer includes a rifle, bandages, a wrench for building various items or repairing tanks, a couple of anti-personnel mines, and a single anti-tank mine for, blowing up tanks. The reason I've aligned the engineer with following the officer is because the engineer's primary role is to hold key locations, and they do this through laying mines and choke points, building resource nodes, and also by constructing a range of deployables such as barbed wire, sandbags, and tank traps. Of course, building things such as nodes and deployables cost resource supplies, so you can only build where the supplies are located. Support guy, I'm looking at you here, buddy. Another key role for the engineer is responding to requests via your officer or other squad members for tank repairs. A disabled or damaged tank can really affect your team's ability to defend an area or take out enemy armour, so it is imperative that engineers respond to requests for help. You can also build a repair station if there are supplies present. Don't forget to lay your mines as early as possible. It's sad if you are killed by the enemy and you hadn't got around to laying your mines. What a waste. Final fun fact. One of the most medal-worthy and therefore highly risky moves is to creep up behind or beside an enemy tank and lay a mine in front of it or behind its tracks, and then run back a ways and shoot the mine with your rifle. Tank will generally go boom. Now on to the roles that aren't squad infantry. The first is the tank commander. Equipment for tankers is not much of anything, but the tank commander gets a submachine gun, pistol, bandages and some binoculars. This role is created as soon as an armour squad is created, but generally we find that the person then fills the gunner or driver roles. To explain, standard armour has 3 seating positions: commander, gunner and driver, and any tank squad member can fill any of those seats. Most tanks will drive around with gunner and driver filled, as the commander position doesn't get to shoot a gun in the tank at all. The tank commander seat is very important though for spotting flanking infantry or enemy tanks. Remember, the gunner and driver have limited visibility, whereas as you can see here, the tank commander has a full 360-degree periscope view, almost as if you were walking around outside. Just don't forget to zoom in first with your mouse wheel to access the view. Ultimately, a tank commander can really make the difference between a good tank crew and a great tank crew. As tank commander, you can also jump out of the tank to engage enemy infantry in close proximity, particularly that sneaky anti-tank guy creeping up on your tank. Just be careful not to get shot or it's a long walk back. The crewman role sits across the 2 tank slots, driver and gunner, although as previously mentioned you can pick any spot you want once in the tank. I suggest fists at 2 paces to see who gets to be the gunner. Ideally both driver and gunner are challenging and both have guns. Driver gets a hull-mounted machine gun, but it doesn't have a huge number of belts. Equipment only consists of a pistol and bandages. Seriously, you have a tank, what the hell else do you need? There are a number of mechanics associated with operating a tank as driver. The rookie error is forgetting to hold the E key to start your engine when you first jump in the tank, so make sure you do that. Gears are 4 speeds, about 20 km an hour maximum speed, and you have to operate gears up and down to get moving. Watch out for collisions. Some of those fence posts can be a real challenge. Note also though that you've got that machine gun on the hull with a limited firing arc that isn't actually all that bad. It's useful to use that machine gun to suppress in bursts, or use the tracer to indicate to your gunner where there is a threat that needs that big gun to shoot. In the military it's called watch my full of shot. Most importantly, don't rush into combat. Keep your front armour facing towards the most likely enemy threat and stop the damn tank, or go in first gear slowly, directly forwards or backwards, doesn't matter, if your gun needs to shoot. If you have a major threat to one side, such as an enemy tank, and your gunner is facing the complete wrong direction, then you can quickly pivot the tank so that your gunner can lay on a target faster. For the gunner, you have the main gun and coaxial machine gun. When you shoot the main gun, make sure you zoom in and you hit what you're aiming for, as everyone's going to know where you are and be looking to crack your armour once you shoot. Know the difference between high explosive and armour piercing shells and when to use them, and don't forget to hit the reload. I recommend checking out one of the many guides available for using armour in this game, as tanks need more than a couple of minutes to really understand them. Try to avoid going solo in a tank. A minimum of 2 is what you want, but a commander is also a great addition. Also remember, scream for repairs or head home to repair if you need. Now we get to one of the most critical roles in the game. The spotter is effectively an officer, but of a recon squad of 2 people, you and a sniper. The spotter gets the following equipment: submachine gun, grenades, bandages, an anti-personnel mine, a stopwatch and a set of binoculars. There are a limit of 2 recon squads per team, meaning that your team is mostly made up of rank and file infantry, so you're a bit unique in recon. Your job is spread across a couple of primary considerations. Firstly, you need to press deep in enemy territory, set up your outpost somewhere that is highly unlikely to be stumbled across, and then work in behind the enemy main body and try and clear out garrisons and outposts. Deep in enemy territory could be 3 or 4 grid squares in. Eventually your team is going to get there, plus you'll also be hopefully calling in supplies and setting up a team garrison 1 or 2 grid squares into the enemy's territory. 2 columns in to the enemy's territory is the furthest you can set up garrisons, but your recon squad outpost can be pretty much anywhere. A second crucial role often forgotten by spotters is to actually spot. Who knew? Here we saw that an enemy was near our garrison, so we just shot him. Spotting is all about moving around behind enemy lines and identifying lines of reinforcement for the enemy, clusters of infantry preparing assaults, identification of garrisons and outposts including trying to take them out or at least marking them, enemy supply drops, and enemy armour advancing. It's also useful to try and work out where the next objectives are going to be after you capture the last ones. Recon is recon for a reason, so please recon for your team. Lastly, in line with the spotting part of spotting, is spotting for your sniper and covering his back. One of the most enjoyable matches I ever had resulted in about 57 sniper kills by me on the Foy map, and part of the reason for that success was that my spotter protected my flanks and advised me of where the enemy were advancing from. Multiple attempts to clear us out resulted in more kills for me, and so thank you to that unknown player. Make sure as spotter that you look after your sniper. Whilst half of the gaming community of the entire planet wants to play the sniper role in every game, it is a lot more difficult in this game to get kills in this easy mode and has less overall impact than some of those other titles out there. However, competition is fierce for the role and you can't fill it unless you have the spotter position filled. Sniper is pretty basic. You get the rifle, a pistol, grenades and bandages. Your job might seem pretty obvious, kill things, but you may need to apply a bit more of a team thought process into your playstyle. If there is pressure on a defensive objective, maybe you could either defend with the team or go to a flank and shoot at the enemy as they reinforce. If your team's on the move forwards, picking off enemy in support of the advance, or deploying deep into enemy territory to cut off defensive troops would be pretty useful too for your team. You're also a conduit of information for your spotter to relay to headquarters. Information is life and your team is screening out for it. One final note. Stop trying to get on top of buildings to snipe. You look stupid up there and you're an easy kill. Unless you're the enemy, in which case please by all means keep trying to get on top of buildings to snipe. I love shooting you off the top of a building and I love watching your tears afterwards. Our final one ends in controversy. Yep, that's artillery. It's the obvious draw card for all new players spawning in at the start of a match. Who doesn't want to shoot the big shiny gun next to him? Anyone can get on one of the 3 guns in the centre spawn and be a loader, gunner or both. That doesn't mean folks actually know how to use the damn thing though. You get 3 types of people in artillery. The first is the player who has generally worked out how to use artillery, and whether they're expert shots or not is irrelevant. This player understands that artillery drains resources used for other things, that smoke rounds are more expensive, that rounds actually take a while to get to the target location, that friendly fire is really annoying, that you should only fire artillery when someone actually calls for it and not just randomly, that you should declare in the command chat when you're firing on an area, that you should ask your team through command chat if anyone needs artillery, or especially smoke for an assault, and that unless you've done your research on how to play artillery, you're probably going to end up just pissing off a lot of people and draining your resources and being team-killed a couple of times. Yes, it is that emotive for many. Group 2 are folks who are brand new to the game and they just want to get on and have a go at stuff. Yeah, I'm all for trying new things, but please learn all the other roles in the game first before you start lobbing 105mm shells down on people's heads. And then there's Group 3, which are my favourite group. These are the folks who don't understand a single word of English, or they just choose to blatantly ignore anyone who's talking to them. The number of team kills these folks dish out, and the number of team kills they receive, are ridiculous. The number of times I've been team killed by, 2506727734 is starting to get a little bit frustrating. Commanders are also known to spawn at the artillery, give a warning or two, and then reinforce the warning with some well-placed lead. Please oh please folks, do not be in Group 3. So there you have it, all of the roles, some points and tips about each one to help you understand your place in the game and what role you might enjoy playing. It is very much a team game, and communication and intelligence, as in real world warfighting, is the key to your success. Hopefully this video has been of use to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.
Is there another enemy tank there apart from one that's got blown up?
He's sitting on the road now, right? Yeah, no, he's got his...
Cheers, Matt, Bruce.
Great stuff, guys. You're gonna be so demotivated once we get this.
C5, you've had one. C5, you've had one enemy garrison.
40 seconds, boys, 40 seconds.